Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios here at Wisteria Cottage. We renamed it College, but it's Cottage. Srila Prabhupada said if you learn the whole Bhagavatam, you'll have the equivalent of 20 PhDs. So we have the preachers here. We have the preachers and teachers of the preachers and teachers, the assistants to the preachers and teachers, all in one room to relish associating with Srila Prabhupada and all the great personalities in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And we'll begin with Sanatana Goswami, the senior disciple of Lord Chaitanya, the one that Lord Chaitanya spent the most time with teaching. I think it was 1 month or 2 months? At least 1 month, 2 months. I don't remember exactly, but anyway. So he wrote the Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram in his ecstasy of glorifying the pastimes of Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes of Vrindavan. And this is the 107th obeisance to the Lord's pastimes in Vrindavan. Goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarvalokaika Drikprada Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Man Nistadaka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin adini chochatakara hanamuncha gadachin mam premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Vidura has finally met Maitreya and has asked Maitreya for shelter and has inquired from Maitreya about the absolute truth. And he particularly asked him about the nature of the creation. And Maitreya is answering his questions. We're on Chapter 3, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 26. The Supreme Living Being, in his feature as the transcendental Purusha incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates the material nature of three modes, and thus by the influence of eternal time, the living entities appear. Purport. The offspring of any living being is born after the father impregnates the mother with semen, and the living entity floating in the semen of the father takes the shape of the mother's form. Similarly, mother material nature cannot produce any living entity from her material elements unless and until she is impregnated with living entities by the Lord Himself. That is the mystery of the generation of the living entities. This impregnating process is performed by the first Purusha incarnation, Karanarnavashayi Vishnu, simply by his glance over material nature. The whole matter is accomplished. We should not understand the process of impregnation by the personality of Godhead in terms of our conception of sex. The omnipotent Lord can impregnate just by His eyes, and therefore He is called all-potent. Each and every part of His transcendental body can perform each and every function of the other parts. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.3 also, the same principle is confirmed. Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma Tasmin Garbham Dadam Yaham. When the cosmic creation is manifested, the living entities are directly supplied from the Lord. They are never products of material nature. Thus, no scientific advancement of material science can ever produce a living being. That is the whole mystery of the material creation. The living entities are foreign to matter, and thus they cannot be happy unless they are situated in the same spiritual life as the Lord. The mistaken living being, out of forgetfulness of this original condition of life, unnecessarily wastes time trying to become happy in the material world. The whole Vedic process is to remind one of this essential feature of life. The Lord offers the conditioned soul a material body for his so-called enjoyment, but if one does not come to his senses and enter into spiritual consciousness, the Lord again puts him in the unmanifested condition as it existed in the beginning of the creation. The Lord is described here as Biryavan, or the greatest potent being, because He impregnates material nature with innumerable living entities who are conditioned from time immemorial. Text 27. Thereafter, influenced by the interactions of eternal time, the supreme sum total of matter, called the Mahatattva, became manifested, and in this Mahatattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord, sowed the seeds of universal manifestation out of His own body. Purport. In due course of time, the impregnated material energy was manifested first as the total material ingredients. Everything takes its own time to fructify, and therefore the word kala choditat, influenced by time, is used herein. The Mahatattva is the total consciousness because a portion of it is represented in everyone as the intellect. The Mahatattva is directly connected with the supreme consciousness of the Supreme Being, but still it appears as matter. The Mahatattva, or shadow of pure consciousness, is the germinating place of all creation. It is pure goodness, with the slight addition of the material mode of passion, and therefore activity is generated from this point. 28. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of the future entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Purport. The Mahatattva lies between pure spirit and material existence. It is the junction of matter and spirit, wherefrom the false ego of the living entity is generated. All living entities are differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead. Under the pressure of false ego, the conditioned souls, although parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, claim to be the enjoyers of material nature. This false ego is the binding force of material existence. The Lord again and again gives the bewildered conditioned souls a chance to get free from this false ego, and that is why the material creation takes place at intervals. He gives the conditioned souls all facilities for rectifying the activities of the false ego, but he does not interfere with their small independence as parts and parcels of the Lord. Text 29. The Mahatattva, or the great causal truth, transforms into false ego, which is manifested in three phases: cause, effect, and doer. All such activities are on the mental plane and are based on the material elements, gross senses, and mental speculation. The false ego is represented in three different modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Purport. A pure living entity in his original spiritual existence is fully conscious of his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord. All souls who are situated in such pure consciousness are liberated, and therefore they eternally live in bliss and knowledge in the various Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. When the material creation is manifested, it is not meant for them. The eternally liberated souls are called Nitya Muktas, and they have nothing to do with the material creation. The material creation is meant for rebellious souls who are not prepared to accept subordination under the Supreme Lord. This spirit of false lordship is called false ego. It is manifested in the three modes of material nature, and it exists in mental speculation only. Those who are in the mode of goodness think that each and every person is God, and thus they laugh at the pure devotees who try to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. That was a heavy statement. Shall we hear that again? Those who are in the mode of goodness think that each and every person is God, and thus they laugh at the pure devotees who try to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Those who are puffed up by the mode of passion try to lord it over the material nature in various ways. Some of them engage in altruistic activities, as if they were agents appointed to do good to others by their mental speculative plans. Such men accept the standard ways of mundane altruism, but their plans are made on the basis of false ego. This false ego extends to the limit of becoming one with the Lord. The last class of egoistic conditioned souls, those in the mode of ignorance, are misguided by identification of the gross body with the self. Thus all their activities are centered around the body only. All these persons are given the chance to play with false egoistic ideas, but at the same time, the Lord is kind enough to give them a chance to take help from scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, so that they may understand the science of Krishna and thus make their lives successful. The entire material creation, therefore, is meant for the falsely egoistic living entities hovering on the mental plane under different illusions in the modes of material nature. Text 30. The false ego is transformed into mind by interaction with the mode of goodness. All the demigods who control the phenomenal world are also products of the same principle, namely the interaction of false ego and the mode of goodness. Purport. False ego interacting with the different modes of material nature is the source of all materials in the phenomenal world. 31. The senses are certainly products of the mode of passion in false ego, and therefore philosophical speculative knowledge and fruitive activities are predominantly products of the mode of passion. Purport. The chief function of the false ego is godlessness. When a person forgets his constitutional position as an eternally subordinate part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and wants to be happy independently, he functions mainly in two ways. He first attempts to act fruitively for personal gain or sense gratification, and after attempting such fruitive activities for a considerable time, when he is frustrated, he becomes a philosophical speculator and thinks himself to be on the same level as God. This false idea of becoming one with the Lord is the last snare of the illusory energy, which traps the living entity into the bondage of forgetfulness under the spell of false ego. The best means of liberation from the clutches of false ego is to give up the habit of philosophical speculation regarding the absolute truth. One should know definitely that the absolute truth is never realized by the philosophical speculations of the imperfect, egoistic person. The absolute truth, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is realized by hearing about Him in all submission and love from a bona fide authority, one who is a representative of the 12 great authorities mentioned in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. By such an attempt only can one conquer the illusory energy of the Lord, although for others she is unsurpassable, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. 32. The sky is a product of sound, and sound is the transformation of egoistic ignorance. In other words, the sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Soul. Purport. In the Vedic hymns it is said, Etasmat Atmana Akashak Sambhutaha. The sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Lord. Those who are egoistic in passion and ignorance cannot conceive of the personality of Godhead. For them, the sky is the symbolic representation of the Supreme Lord. So for that reason, Prabhupada said, if a person's too attached to the body and the mind, he should worship the Virat Rupa. 33. Thereafter the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus the touch sensation developed, from which the air in the sky was produced. Purport. All material creations take place from subtle to gross. The entire universe has developed in that manner. From the sky developed the touch sensation, which is a mixture of eternal time, the external energy, and the glance of the personality of Godhead. The touch sensation developed into the air in the sky. Similarly, all other gross matter also developed from subtle to gross. Sound developed into sky, touch developed into air, form developed into fire, taste developed into water, and smell developed into earth. 34. Thereafter, the extremely powerful air, interacting with the sky, generated the sense perception of form, and the perception of form transformed into electricity, the light, to see the world. 35. When electricity was surcharged in the air and was glanced over by the Supreme. At that time, by a mixture of eternal time and the external energy, there occurred the creation of water and taste. 36. Thereafter, the water produced from electricity was glanced over by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and mixed with eternal time and the external energy. Thus, the water was transformed into the earth, which is qualified primarily by smell. 37. O gentle one, of all the physical elements, beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. From the descriptions of the physical elements in the above verses, it is clear that in all stages, the glance of the Supreme is needed with the other additions and alterations. In every transformation, the last finishing touch is the glance of the Lord, who acts as a painter does when he mixes different colors to transform them into a particular color. So funny. When one element mixes with another, the number of its qualities increases. For example, the sky is a cause of air. The sky has only one quality, namely sound. But by the interaction of the sky with the glance of the Lord, mixed with eternal time and the external nature, the air is produced, which has two qualities, sound and touch. Similarly, after the air is created, the interaction of sky and air, touched by time and the external energy of the Lord, produces electricity. And after the interaction of electricity with air and sky mixed with time, the external energy and the Lord's glance over them, water is produced. In the finer stage of sky, there is one quality, namely sound. In the air, there are two qualities, sound and touch. In the electricity, there are three qualities, namely sound, touch, and form. In the water, there are four qualities, namely sound, touch, form, and taste. And in the last stage of physical development, the result is earth, which has all five qualities, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Although they are different mixtures of different materials, such mixtures do not take place automatically. Just as a mixture of colors does not take place automatically without the touch of a living painter. The automatic system is factually activated by the glancing touch of the Lord. Living consciousness is the final word in all physical changes. This fact is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:10 as follows: Maya tyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanani konteya jagat viparivartate. The conclusion is that the physical elements may work very wonderfully to the layman's eyes, but their workings actually take place under the supervision of the Lord. Those who can mark only the changes of the physical elements and cannot perceive the hidden hands of the Lord behind them are certainly less intelligent persons, although they may be advertised as great material scientists. Text 38. The word guru means heavy with knowledge. The way Prabhupada unpacks these verses is something else, isn't it? Something else. Therefore, faithfulness is the element that we need. If we hear these things with faithfulness, then we can actually assimilate them. Okay, 38. The controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansions of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his parts and parcels. Because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties, but were unable to perform them, they offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. Purport. The conception of various controlling demigods who inhabit the higher planetary systems for the management of universal affairs is not imaginary, as proposed by persons with a poor fund of knowledge. The demigods are expanded parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and they are embodied by time, the external energy, and partial consciousness of the Supreme. Human beings, animals, birds, etc., are also parts and parcels of the Lord and have different material bodies, but they are not the controlling deities of material affairs. They are rather controlled by such demigods. Such control is not superfluous. It is as necessary as the controlling departments in the affairs of a modern state. The demigods should not be despised by the controlled living beings. They are all great devotees of the Lord, entrusted to execute certain functions of universal affairs. One may be angry with Yamaraj for his thankless task of punishing sinful souls, but Yamaraj is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other demigods. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputed demigods. Read that one again. A devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputed demigods who function as assistants of the Lord, but he shows them all respects on account of the responsible positions to which they have been appointed by the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake them to be the Supreme Lord. Only foolish persons accept the demigods as being on the same level as Vishnu. Actually, they are all appointed as servants of Vishnu. Anyone who places the Lord and the demigods on the same level is called a pashandi, or atheist. The demigods are worshipped by persons who are more or less adherents of the processes of jnana, yoga, and karma. That is, the impersonalists, meditators, and fruitive workers. The devotees, however, worship only the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This worship is not for any material benefit, as desired by all the materialists, even up to the salvationists, mystics, and fruitive workers. Devotees worship the Supreme Lord to attain unalloyed devotion to the Lord. The Lord, however, is not worshipped by others who have no program for attaining love of God, which is the essential aim of human life. Persons averse to a loving relationship with God are more or less condemned by their own actions. The Lord is equal to every living entity, just like the flowing Ganges. The Ganges water is meant for the purification of everyone, yet the trees on the banks of the Ganges have different values. A mango tree on the bank of the Ganges drinks the water, and the neem tree also drinks the same water. But the fruits of these trees are different. One is celestially sweet, and the other is hellishly bitter. The condemned bitterness of the neem is due to its own past work, just as the sweetness of the mango is also due to its own karma. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tan aham dvishatak kruran sangshareshu naradaman chipam yajashram ashubhan asuri shvevanjonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Demigods like Yamaraj and other controllers are there for the unwanted conditioned souls who always engage in threatening the tranquility of the kingdom of God. Since all the demigods are confidential, what have you got? Somebody tell me what you got. Nothing. I know.
Since all the demigods are confidential devotee servitors of the Lord, and they are never to be condemned.
Make a note of this, please. Now, this is the third time I've asked you to make me a note, and you've got to remind me of all of them, because I've got to...
I'll email it to you.
Yeah, please. Okay. Since all the demigods are confidential devotees...
Devotee-servitors. the Lord, comma, they are never to be condemned, full stop.
I've got the same thing.
And that's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Since the demigods are confidential devotees, servitors of the Lord, they are never to be condemned. Is there a space between the slash, after the slash?
Devotee servitor.
Yeah.
There's a hyphen with this joined together. There's no space.
So there's a hyphen.
Yeah, it's a hyphen.
Got it. Text 39. This is why we have to make the proper corrections. Of course, that's not in the book.
No.
This is due to the software that they make the folio with. It happens all the time. But it means we need a proofreader with the archives.
But that means they'll make more changes.
Yeah, this is one of the changes they'll make, right? Correct. Correct. It is. 39. The demigod said, O Lord, your lotus feet are like an umbrella for the surrendered souls, protecting them from all the miseries of material existence. All the sages under that shelter throw off all material miseries. We therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. Purport. There are many sages and saints who engage in trying to conquer rebirth and all other material miseries. But of all of them, those who take shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord can completely throw off all such miseries without difficulty. Others who are engaged in transcendental activities in different ways cannot do so. For them it is very difficult. They may artificially think of becoming liberated without accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, but that is not possible. One is sure to fall again to material existence from such false liberation, even though one may have undergone severe penances and austerities. This is the opinion of the demigods, who are not only well versed in Vedic knowledge, but are also seers of the past, present, and future. The opinions of the demigods are valuable because the demigods are authorized to hold positions in the affairs of universal management. They are appointed by the Lord as his confidential servants. This is fascinating. We're hearing the demigods offering prayers to the Lord. Okay, we got it all here, but we don't know what to do with it, so now what? Basically, right? And we're all thinking we know everything, right? Okay, 40. O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in the material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. Purport. The way of devotional service is neither sentimental nor mundane. It is the path of reality by which the living entity can attain the transcendental happiness of being freed from three kinds of material miseries. Miseries arising from the body and mind, from other living entities, and from natural disturbances. Everyone who is conditioned by material existence, whether he be a man or beast, or demigod or bird, must suffer from adhyatmika pains, those caused by one's body or mind, adibhotika pains, those caused by other living creatures, and adidaivika pains, those due to supernatural disturbances. One's happiness is nothing but a hard struggle to get freed from the miseries of conditional life. But there is only one way he can be rescued, and that is by accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The argument that unless one has proper knowledge, one cannot be freed from material miseries is undoubtedly true. But because the lotus feet of the Lord are full of transcendental knowledge. Acceptance of his lotus feet completes that necessity. We have already discussed this point in the first canto, 1-2-7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashivairagyam Jnanam Chayarahaitukam. There is no want of knowledge in the devotional service of Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. He, the Lord, personally takes charge of dissipating the darkness of ignorance from the heart of a devotee. He confirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Empiric philosophical speculation cannot give one relief from the threefold miseries of material existence. Simply to endeavor for knowledge without devoting oneself to the Lord is a waste of valuable time. Text 41. The lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The clear-minded sages, carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best of rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. Purport. The Paramahamsas are compared to royal swans who make their nests on the petals of the lotus flowers, of the lotus flower. The Lord's transcendental bodily parts are always compared to the lotus flower because in the material world, the lotus flower is the last word in beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world is the Vedas, or the Bhagavad Gita, because therein knowledge is imparted by the personality of Godhead himself. The Paramahamsa makes his nest in the lotus-like face of the Lord and always seeks the shelter at his lotus feet, which are reached by the wings of Vedic wisdom. Since the Lord is the original source of all emanations, intelligent persons, enlightened by Vedic knowledge, seek the shelter of the Lord, just as birds who leave the nest search out the nest again to take complete rest. All Vedic knowledge is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord, as stated by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Vidaish chasarva aham eva vedya. Intelligent persons who are like swans take shelter of the Lord by all means and do not hover on the mental plane by fruitlessly speculating on different philosophies. The Lord is so kind that he has spread the river Ganges throughout the universe so that by taking bath in that holy river, everyone can get released from the reactions of sins which occur at every step. There are many rivers in the world which are able to evoke one's sense of God consciousness simply by one's bathing in them, and the river Ganges is chief amongst them. In India there are 5 sacred rivers, the Ganges, Yamuna, Godavari, Narmada, and Kaveri, but the Ganges is the most sacred. The river Ganges and the Bhagavad Gita are chief sources of transcendental happiness for mankind, and intelligent persons must take shelter of them to go back home, back to Godhead. Even Sripad Shankaracharya recommends that a little knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and the drinking of a little quantity of Ganges water can save one from the punishment of Yamaraj. Text 42. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. And on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Purport. The miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. The minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search out the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors. But even such materialistic men, with a little eagerness for hearing about the Lord's transcendental name, fame, qualities, and so on, can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. The culture of self-knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection, and without such detachment, there is no meaning to knowledge. The most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Knowledge must be followed by detachment. That is the way of self-realization. These two essentials for self-realization, knowledge and detachment, become manifest very quickly if one performs devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word dhira is very significant in this connection. A person who is not disturbed even in the presence of causes of disturbance is called dhira. Sri Yamunacharya says, "Since my heart has been overwhelmed by the devotional service of the Lord, I cannot even think of sex life, and if thoughts of sex come upon me, I at once feel disgust." A devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated dhira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. I will repeat that. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. Text 43. O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet, because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. Purport. For the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestations, there are three incarnations: Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Lord Shiva. They are the controllers or masters of the three modes of material nature, which cause the phenomenal manifestation. Vishnu is the master of the mode of goodness, Brahma is the master of the mode of passion, and Maheshwara is the master of the mode of ignorance. There are three different kinds of devotees according to the modes of nature. Persons in the mode of goodness worship Lord Vishnu, those in the mode of passion worship Lord Brahma, and those in the mode of ignorance worship Lord Shiva. All three of these deities are incarnations of the Supreme Lord Krishna because he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here the demigods directly refer to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and not to those of his different incarnations. Now, this is a very important point because This is the part of the creation, the sarga. This is not the visarga. Those demigods who are created at this stage of creation are the main ones, the ones that actually will have control over these different elements and resources of the material nature. There are also other kinds of demigods who do different administrative things, but these are the ones that are created at the time of the beginning of the creation, in the mind of the Lord, before it becomes manifested externally as an external material form. Here the demigods directly refer to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and not to those of his different incarnations. The incarnation of Vishnu in the material world is, however, directly worshipped by the demigods. It is learned from various scriptures that the demigods approach Lord Vishnu in the ocean of milk and submit their grievances whenever there is some difficulty in the administration of the universal affairs. Although Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are incarnations of the Lord, they worship Lord Vishnu, and thus they are also counted amongst the demigods, and not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who worship Lord Vishnu are called demigods, and persons who do not do so are called asuras, or demons. Vishnu always takes the side of the demigods, but Brahma and Shiva sometimes takes the side of the demons. It is not that they become one in interest with them, but sometimes they do something in order to gain control over the demons. Text 44. O Lord, persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsmen, and who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet. Purport. The whole Vedic... I gotta read that again. Sorry. This is deep stuff. It's hard to keep the mind exactly, from going away, wandering. O Lord, persons who are entangled by undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsmen, and who are bound by thoughts of mine and I, are unable to see your lotus feet, although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies. But let us take shelter of your lotus feet. Purport. The whole Vedic philosophy of life is that one should get rid of the material engagement of gross and subtle bodies, which only cause one to continue in a condemned life of miseries. This material body continues as long as one is not detached from the false conception of lording it over material nature. The impetus for lording it over material nature is the sense of mine and I. I am the Lord of all I survey. So many things I possess, and I shall possess more and more. Who can be richer than I in wealth and education? I am the Master, and I am God. Who else is there but me? All these ideas reflect the philosophy of aham mama, the conception that I am everything. Persons conducted by such a conception of life can never get liberation from material bondage. But even a person perpetually condemned to the miseries of material existence can get relief from bondage if he simply agrees to hear only Krishna Katha. Yahoo! Shall I read that again? But even a person perpetually condemned to the miseries of material existence can get relief from bondage if he simply agrees to hear only Krishna Katha. Haribo. In this age of Kali, the process of hearing Krishna Katha is the most effective means of gaining release from unwanted family affection and thus finding permanent freedom in life. The age of Kali is full of sinful reactions, and people are more and more addicted to the qualities of this age. But simply by hearing and chanting of Krishna Katha, one is sure to go back to Godhead. Therefore, people should be trained to hear only Krishna Katha by all means in order to get relief from all miseries. That one's going in for next year. This is definitely going in. Just hold on a sec. Just give me a little mercy here. Give me a little time. I'm going to put this into the right place so I won't forget it. Yeah. It's like, diamond. Huh. Got it. It's going in next year. Part 3. Letting Srila Prabhupada speak for himself. Part 3. Text 45. I think this is part of what it means to be eager to hear. When you hear eagerly, then when you get a gem like this, it's like it just, O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision have been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but those feet are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is to transcendently enjoy your activities. Purport. So who says we don't get enjoyment? Purport. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 1861, the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. It is natural that one should be able to see the Lord, at least within himself. But that is not possible for those whose internal vision have been covered by external activities.
It says that one should he able.
Write it down. Does yours have he able?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Write it down. I wonder if it's in the book. Anyway. As stated, thanks very much. That was a good catch. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 1861, the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. See, when you read something like that, you say be. Mm-hmm. I said be because I've corrected things so much. So you have to always have more than one eye looking at it. Always. It is natural that one should be able to see the Lord, at least within himself. But that is not possible for those whose internal vision has been covered by external activities. The pure soul, which is symptomized by consciousness, can be easily perceived, even by a common man, because consciousness is spread all over the body. The yoga system, as recommended in the Bhagavad Gita, is to concentrate the mental activities internally and thus see the lotus feet of the Lord within oneself. But there are many so-called yogis who have no concern with the Lord, but are only concerned with consciousness, which they accept as the final realization. Such realization of consciousness is taught by the Bhagavad Gita within only a few minutes, whereas the so-called yogis take continuous years to realize it because of their offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The greatest offense is to deny the existence of the Lord as separate from the individual souls, or to accept the Lord and the individual soul as one and the same. The impersonalists misinterpret the theory of reflection, and thus they wrongly accept the individual consciousness as the supreme consciousness. The theory of reflection of the Supreme can be clearly understood without difficulty by any sincere common man. When there is a reflection of the sky on the water, both the sky and the stars are seen within the water. But it is understood that the sky and the stars are not to be accepted on the same level. The stars are part of the sky, and therefore they cannot be equal to the whole. The sky as the whole is the whole, and the stars are parts. They cannot be one and the same. Transcendentalists who do not accept the Supreme Consciousness as separate from the individual consciousness are as offensive as the materialists who deny even the existence of the Lord. Such offenders cannot actually see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves, nor are they even able to see the devotees of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord are so kind that they roam to all places to enlighten people in God consciousness. The offenders, however, lose the chance to receive the Lord's devotees, although the offenseless common man is at once influenced by the devotee's presence. In this connection, there is an interesting story of a hunter and Devarshi Narada. A hunter in the forest, although a great sinner, was not an intentional offender. He was at once influenced by the presence of Narada, and he agreed to take the path of devotion, leaving aside his hearth and home. But the offenders Nalakuvara and Manigriva, even though living amongst the demigods, had to undergo the punishment of becoming trees in their next lives, although by the grace of a devotee they were later delivered by the Lord. Offenders have to wait until they receive the mercy of the devotees, and then they can become eligible. Huh? Oh, you said wow. I thought you said so. We knew. Offenders have to wait until they receive the mercy of devotees, and then they can become eligible to see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves. But due to their offenses and their extreme materialism, they cannot see even the devotees of the Lord. Engaged in external activities, they kill the internal vision. The Lord's devotees, however, do not mind the offenses of the foolish in their many gross and subtle bodily endeavors. The Lord's devotees continue to bestow the blessings of devotion upon all such offenders without hesitation. I mean, how important is that statement? We should not make it more difficult for people to become devotees. We should make it as easy as possible for conditioned souls to become devotees. That should be the motto of our... That doesn't mean we make it so easy everybody can come and not become qualified. But we shouldn't make it more difficult than it already is by imposing too many restrictions and rules from the very beginning. And what to speak of developing an attitude towards those who can't follow them strictly from the beginning. In other words, we have to take risks. I'm going to read this part again. This is really important. Offenders have to wait until they receive the mercy of devotees, and then they can become eligible to see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves. But due to their offenses and their extreme materialism, they cannot even see the devotees of the Lord. Engaged in external activities, they kill the internal vision. The Lord's devotees, however, do not mind the offenses of the foolish in their many gross and subtle bodily endeavors. The Lord's devotees continue to bestow the blessings of devotion upon all such offenders without hesitation. Harinama, 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 Ibakila. That is the nature of devotees. Wow. I gotta just sit on this for a second. Just sit on this one for a second. What it means to be a devotee. Not we look for the faults and don't allow people to come in, even if they have a little fault. This is what it takes to make devotees and keep them. Text 46. O Lord, persons who, because of their serious attitude, attain the stage of enlightened devotional service, achieve the complete meaning of renunciation and knowledge, and attain the Vaikuntha Loka in the spiritual sky simply by drinking the nectar of your topics. Excuse me. This is going right in there. That's Bhagavatam 3, 5. What verse?
46.
46. Purport. The difference between the impersonalistic mental speculators and the pure devotees of the Lord is that the former pass through a miserable understanding of the absolute truth at every stage, whereas the devotees enter into the kingdom of all pleasures even from the beginning of their attempt. The devotee has only to hear about devotional activities, which are as simple as anything in ordinary life. And he also acts very simply, whereas the mental speculator has to pass through a jugglery of words, which are partially facts and partially a make-show for the maintenance of an artificial impersonal status. In spite of his strenuous efforts to attain perfect knowledge, the impersonalist attains merging into the impersonal oneness of the Brahmajyoti of the Lord, which is also attained by the enemies of the Lord, simply because of their being killed by him. The devotees, however, attain the highest stage of knowledge and renunciation, and achieve the Vaikuntha Lokas, the planets in the spiritual sky. The impersonalist attains only the sky, and does not achieve any tangible transcendental bliss, whereas the devotee attains to the planets where real spiritual life prevails. With a serious attitude, the devotee throws away all other achievements like so much dust, and he accepts only devotional service, the transcendental culmination. Text 47. Others who were pacified by means of transcendental self-realization and have conquered over the modes of nature by dint of strong power and knowledge also enter into you, but for them there is much pain, whereas the devotee simply discharges devotional service and thus feels no such pain. Purport. In terms of a labor of love and its returns, the bhaktas or devotees of the Lord always have priority over persons who are addicted to the association of jnanis or impersonalists and yogis or mystics. The word apare, others, is very significant in this connection. Others refers to the jnanis and the yogis whose only hope is to merge into the existence of the impersonal Brahmajyoti. although the destination is not so important in comparison to the destination of the devotees, the labor of the non-devotees is far greater than that of the bhaktas. One may suggest that there is sufficient labor for the devotees also in the matter of discharging devotional service, but that labor is compensated by the enhancement of transcendental pleasure. The devotees derive more transcendental pleasure while engaged continuously in the service of the Lord than when they have no such engagement. In the family combination of man and a woman, there is much labor and responsibility for both of them, yet when they are single, they feel more trouble for want of their united activities. The union of the impersonalist and the union of the devotees are not on a par. The impersonalists try to stop their individuality by attaining sayuja mukti, or unification by merging into oneness, whereas the devotees keep their individuality to exchange feelings in relationship with the Supreme Individual Lord. Such reciprocation of feelings takes place in the transcendental Vaikuntha planets, and therefore the liberation sought by the impersonalists is already achieved in devotional service. The devotees attain mukti automatically, while continuing the transcendental pleasure of maintaining individuality. As explained in the previous verse, the destination of the devotees is Vaikuntha, or Akunta Jisnya, the place where anxieties are completely eradicated. One should not mistake the destination of the devotees and that of the impersonalists to be one and the same. The destinations are distinctly different, and the transcendental pleasure derived by the devotee is also distinct from chinmatra, or spiritual feelings alone. In other words, the impersonalist has a feeling of eternity, but because it isn't in connection with anyone else, it's not complete. So because they are not complete, they have to either come down to the material world or go onto the transcendental planets. And usually they come down to the material world. Battery died?
My computer.
Oh my God. I hope you can revive it, bring it back to life.
Yeah. I mean, I can grab it stuff too.
No, it's not a big deal. We're almost finished anyway. And that's a pretty nice statement. The destination, one should not mistake the destination of the devotees and that of the impersonalists to be one and the same. The destinations are distinctly different, and the transcendental pleasure derived by the devotee is also distinct from the chinmatra, or spiritual feelings alone. So that's the principle. We can't be satisfied alone. It's the loners who always perform these heinous crimes, called lone wolves. And even worse when they're in gangs, I guess. Gangs of lone wolves. They do horrible things, these gangs nowadays. Okay, we're going to stop there for tonight. We're on text 48. How many verses are in this chapter, by the way? Do we have, somebody has it?
51.
51, only 3 more verses. We might as well just finish it up. Just.
Krishna's mercy. I was really sad to hear that.
Ooh, okay. Text 48. By the mercy of Dalamore's anxiety, we're going to move on. O original person, we are therefore but yours only. Although we are your creatures, we are born one after another under the influence of the 3 modes of nature, and for this reason we are separated in action. Therefore, after the creation, we could not act concertedly for your transcendental pleasure. Purport. The cosmic creation is working under the influence of the three modes of the external potency of the Lord. Different creatures are also under the same influence, and therefore they cannot act concertedly in satisfying the Lord. Because of this diverse activity, there cannot be any harmony in the material world. The best policy, therefore, is to act for the sake of the Lord. That will bring about the desired harmony. 49. O unborn one, please enlighten us regarding the ways and means by which we can offer you all enjoyable grains and commodities, so that both we and all other living entities in this world can maintain ourselves without disturbance, and can easily accumulate the necessities of life, both for you and for ourselves. Purport. Developed consciousness begins from the human form of life, and further increases in the forms of the demigods living on higher planets. The earth is situated almost in the middle of the universe, and thus the human form of life is situated between the life of the demigods and that of the demons. The planetary systems above the earth are especially meant for the higher intellectuals, called demigods. They are called demigods because, although their standard of life is far advanced in culture, enjoyment, luxury, beauty, education, and duration of life, they are always fully God-conscious. Such demigods are always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord because they are perfectly aware of the fact that every living entity is constitutionally an eternal subordinate servitor of the Lord. They also know that it is the Lord only who can maintain all living entities with all the necessities of life. The Vedic hymns confirm this truth. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman, ta enam abruvan ayatanam nat prajanihi jasmin pratishtita anam adame, etc. Where were we? Yes. Also, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is mentioned as Bhutabrit, or the maintainer of all living creatures. The modern theory that starvation is due to an increase in population is not accepted by the demigods or the devotees of the Lord. The devotees or demigods are fully aware that the Lord can maintain any number of living entities, provided they are conscious of how to eat. If they want to eat like ordinary animals who have no God consciousness, then they must live in starvation, poverty, and want, like that of jungle animals in the forests. The jungle animals are also maintained by the Lord with their respective foodstuffs, but they are not advanced in God consciousness. Similarly, human beings are provided with food grains, vegetables, fruits, and milk by the grace of the Lord, but it is the duty of human beings to acknowledge the mercy of the Lord. As a matter of gratitude, they should feel obliged to the Lord for their supply of foodstuff, and they must first offer Him food in sacrifice, and then partake of the remnants. In the Bhagavad Gita 3:13, it is confirmed that one who takes foodstuff after a performance of sacrifice eats real food for proper maintenance of the body and soul, but that one who cooks for himself and does not perform any sacrifice eats only lumps of sin in the shape of foodstuffs. Such sinful eating can never make one happy or free from scarcity. Famine is not due to an increase in population as less intelligent economists think, but it is due to the ingratitude of human beings. When human society is grateful to the Lord for all His gifts, for the maintenance of living entities, there is certainly no scarcity or want in society. But when people are unaware of the intrinsic value of such gifts from the Lord, surely they will be in want. A person who has no God consciousness may live in opulence for the time being due to his past virtuous acts. But if he forgets his relationship with the Lord, certainly he must await the stage of starvation by the law of the powerful material nature. One cannot escape the vigilance of the powerful material nature unless he leads a God-conscious or devotional life. Florida and California are getting the brunt of it. And they're both very sinful places. Very sinful places. Text 50. You are the original personal founder of all the demigods and the orders of different gradations. Yet you are the oldest and are unchanged. O Lord, you have no source or superior. You have impregnated the external energy with the semen of the total living entities, yet you are unborn. Purport. The Lord, the original person, is the father of all other living entities, beginning from Brahma, the personality from whom all other living entities in different gradations of species are generated. Yet the Supreme Father has no other father. Every one of the living entities of all grades, up to Brahma, the original creator of the universe, is begotten by a father, but he, the Lord, has no father. When he descends to the material plane, out of his causeless mercy, he accepts one of his great devotees as his father, to keep pace with the rules of the material world. But since he is the Lord, he is always independent in choosing who will become his father. For example, the Lord came out of a pillar in his incarnation as Nrsingadev. And by the Lord's causeless mercy, Alaya came out of a stone by the touch of the lotus feet of his incarnation as Lord Sri Rama. As the Supersoul, he is also the companion of every living entity, but he remains unchanged. The living entity changes his body in the material world, but even when the Lord is in the material world, he is ever unchanged. That is his prerogative. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14.3, the Lord impregnates the external or material energy, and thus the total living entities later come out in different gradations, beginning from Brahma, the first demigod, down to the insignificant ant. All gradations of living entities are manifested by Brahma and the external energy, but the Lord is the original father of everyone. Therefore, the relationship of every living being with the Supreme Lord is certainly one of son and father, and not one of equality. Sometimes out of love, the son will become more than the father, but the basic relationship of father and son is one of superior and subordinate. Every living entity, however great he may be, even up to demigods like Brahma and Indra, is an eternally subordinate servitor of the Supreme Father. The Mahat Tattva principle is the generating source of all the modes of material nature, and the living entities take birth in the material world in bodies supplied by the mother, material nature, in terms of their previous work. The body is a gift of material nature, but the soul is originally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Like every purport is like a complete unit and just explains everything over and over and over again. It's amazing. Text 51. O Supreme Self, please give us, who are created in the beginning from the Mahatattva, the total cosmic energy, your kind directions on how we shall act. Kindly award us your perfect knowledge and potency so that we can render you service in the different departments of subsequent creation. Notice, subsequent creation. It's not all created yet. Purport. The Lord creates this material world and impregnates the material energy with the living entities who will act in the material world. All these actions have a divine plan behind them. The plan is to give the conditioned souls who desire to enjoy sense gratification a chance to do so. But there is another plan behind the creation, to give the living entities, to help the living entities realize that they are created for the transcendental sense gratification of the Lord, and not for their individual sense gratification. This is the constitutional position of the living entities. The Lord is one without a second, and He expands Himself into many for His transcendental pleasure. All the expansions, the Vishnu Tattvas, the Jiva Tattvas, and the Shakti Tattvas, the personalities of Godhead, the living entities, and the different potent energies, are different offshoots from the same one Supreme Lord. The Jiva Tattvas are separated expansions of the Vishnu Tattvas, and although there are differences in potency between the Jiva Tattvas and the Vishnu Tattvas, they are all meant for the transcendental sense gratification of the Supreme Lord. Some of the Jivas, however, wanted to lord it over material nature in imitation of the lordship of the personality of Godhead. Regarding when and why such propensities overcame the pure living entities, it can only be explained that the Jiva Tattvas have infinitesimal independence, and that due to misuse of this independence, some of the living entities have become implicated in the conditions of cosmic creation, and are therefore called Nityabaddhas, or eternally conditioned souls. The expansions of Vedic wisdom give the Nityabaddhas, the conditioned living entities, a chance to improve, and those who take advantage of such transcendental knowledge gradually regain their lost consciousness of rendering transcendental living service to the Lord. The demigods are amongst the conditioned souls who have developed this pure consciousness of service to the Lord, but who at the same time continue to desire to lord it over the material energy. Such mixed consciousness puts a conditioned soul in a position of managing the affairs of this creation. This is what we need to get out of management, I guess. Or why we should have compassion on those who have to manage.
Oh yes.
The demigods are entrusted leaders of the conditioned souls, as some of the old prisoners in government jails are entrusted with some responsible work of prison management. So the demigods are improved conditioned souls, acting as representatives of the Lord in the material creation. Such demigods are devotees of the Lord in the material world, and when completely free from all material desire to lord it over the material energy, they become pure devotees and have no desire but to serve the Lord. Therefore, any living entity who desires a position in the material world may desire so in the service of the Lord, and may seek power and intelligence from the Lord, as exemplified by the demigods in this particular verse. One cannot do anything unless he is enlightened and empowered by the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mattak smritir jnanam apavanam cha. All recollections, knowledge, etc., as well as forgetfulness, are engineered by the Lord, who is sitting within the heart of everyone. The intelligent man seeks the help of the Lord, and the Lord helps the sincere devotees engaged in His multifarious services. The demigods are entrusted by the Lord with creating different species of living entities according to their past deeds. They are herein asking the favor of the Lord for the intelligence and power to carry out their task. Similarly, any conditioned soul may also engage in the service of the Lord under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, and thus gradually become freed from the entanglement of material existence. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord, and anyone who puts himself under the guidance of the spiritual master and acts accordingly is said to be acting in terms of buddhi yoga, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports. of the third canto, fifth chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya.
Srila Prabhupada does it again.
Hare Krishna. I mean, if we do this every day in the temple, what's going to happen?
Well,
Revolution. Revolution.
at the very least, everybody will be ecstatic.
That's what we all came here for.
That's what I signed up for.
Yeah. And everything else that we're doing in terms of management and organization is all meant to give this. If we forget that, then the other thing becomes what? Troublesome. Burden. It becomes a burden. Even the deity worship will become burden. It's not meant to be a burden. It's meant to be done out of love. But if the hearing and chanting isn't done sufficiently and rightly, and I'm convinced about this now that I've been doing this for so long, that if you just read Prabhupada's book straight, just let him speak for himself and have reflections, have realizations, not that we don't, but let this be the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing. Okay, we're going to stop our reading for tonight there. We'll start with the sixth chapter tomorrow, the creation of the universal form. We haven't even created the universal form yet. This is just getting started. Just the ingredients have been created. Okay, so now we've come to the reflection of the Vaishnavas and what we've read. So please feel free to express yourselves. Anything that stuck out in your mind or you want to reflect on, you want to Radharaman's got something percolating over there. It's about ready to come out.
Yeah, just there's so many things, but I think it's just broad and many wonderful things. I think this is one.
Radharaman is saying, of all the many wonderful things, this is the thing he's about to say is...
But I think it was one thing that everybody seemed to...
something that everybody seemed to react to. Oh yes, I remember that moment.
Persons conducted by such a conception of life can never get liberation from material bondage. But even a person perpetually condemned to the miseries of material existence can get relief from bondage if he simply agrees to hear only Krishna Katha. In this age of Kali, the process of hearing Krishna Katha is the most effective means to gain release from unwanted family affection and thus find permanent freedom in life. The age of Kali is full of sinful reactions, and people are more and more addicted to the qualities of this age. But simply by hearing and chanting of Krishna Katha, one is sure to go back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, people should be trained to hear only Krishna Katha by all means, in order to get relief from all miseries. I was just wondering, Raja.
I mean, how wonderful is that?
It should be Krishna Katha, Krishna Katha, Krishna Katha, Eva Kevalam.
Yeah.
Is they using all the same words, the same
Exactly.
language, age of Kali, everything
Yeah.
is mentioned.
There is no difference. There is no difference. Very important.
I was just wondering if you could comment a little also on this thing that Prabhupada says at the end, which he's repeating, so therefore people should be trained to hear only Krishna Katha.
Well, because the nature of the conditioned soul, as far as I can hear from the purports of this chapter especially, from the demigods, is to separate, from the Lord. So the difference between matter and spirit is simply remembrance or forgetfulness. So therefore, if we keep ourselves absorbed only in Krishna Katha, then we are in the spiritual world. That spiritualizes our everything. We become complete. So the feeling of incompleteness is only due to a lack of complete knowledge or complete hearing of Krishna Katha. As soon as we forget Krishna, we're in Maya. Prabhupada used to say, just as Krishna is all-pervasive, so is Maya all-pervasive in the cloud of material existence. Therefore, the only way that you can become spiritualized here is to keep yourself connected with Krishna. Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. In the 10th canto, in the beginning of the 10th canto, Prabhupada says that ISKCON is an incarnation of Krishna, appeared in the material world to deliver the souls back to Godhead. So that's our solemn duty, as those who have heard this, to explain it to others and make sure that this happens, especially in all of our temples. And if we explain it in that way and explain it together and keep ourselves together doing that, then nothing can stop that. That's Lord Chaitanya's movement. Just like at the beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra, when the 11th chapter, and Krishna revealed to Arjuna that actually everyone was already killed. You're going to survive, and a few others, your brothers and a few others. That's it. That's what's going to happen. It's already done. I'm time. I've come to do this. So now all you have to do is fight, and you'll win. So Lord Chaitanya came and he said what? The holy name and the holy fame of the Lord will spread all over the world. And it's happening. And it will happen. It will continue to happen. And we can, we don't want to take any credit. It isn't our credit, obviously. But that's what Krishna wants. He wants to give the credit to his devotees for doing that. In the 11th chapter he says, I choose by my will to purify the three worlds by the dust of the lotus feet of my pure devotees. In the purport, Prabhupada explains how the pure devotees, they're following Krishna, but Krishna is following the pure devotees. And as he follows them, the wind blows the dust from his feet up and in front of the devotees, and they walk over that. And so it's actually the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord that's purifying everything. In the purports we just read, it was the Ganges is the same. Comes from the lotus feet of the Lord, travels all through the universe and purifies the universe. But it's really good point that Mora brought up. I'd like to reflect on this, on your point. And that is that if you analyze the thoughts of that, what Radharaman read, that Harinama, 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 Kevalam, Klev, the words are exactly the same, the holy name and the Krishna Katha. Because the holy name is Krishna Katha. And the Bhagavatam is Krishna Katha. And that we have to have a talk with our friends. Because if one separates those two, then he's not following, he's not understanding properly. And he will cause disturbance. But we have to be, what does it say? What did we just read? This is another reflection. We read that point about the devotees. They have compassion even to persons who are like that.
We continue to give devotion.
Without, what did it say?
It says, we continue to bestow upon such offenders without any hesitation the blessings of devotion.
There you go.
That is the nature of devotee.
Wow. There you go. We just got our marching orders, or our game plan, or our...
It's all there. While reading everything, Prabhupada,
everything.
Almost into every purport.
Amazing. And this is in the beginning of the third canto, before even the material nature starts to actually manifest itself. How deep is the Srimad-Bhagavatam? How can anyone stop reading the Srimad-Bhagavatam? I mean, I'm flummoxed, I gobsmacked, as they say in this country. How can anyone stop reading this book constantly? So fortunate to have this simple goal in life. Isn't it? We're going to be flatmates.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll have an official address, and I'll get a little bank account and get my little, like biometric card, and then when Trump blows up America, me and Matt will come over here and take over Europe.
And I'll come down, move down here as well.
Rani Manjari has a reflection.
Okay, Rati, go ahead.
She said, I was surprised to hear that the condemned bitterness of the Nima tree is considered to be due to its own past work. The Srimad-Bhagavatam 3.538 purport, since it's also considered full of medical properties, and Lord Chaitanya also took birth underneath one, would you please elaborate on this if you like?
Well, medical properties cure the material body and perpetuate material existence. But the point being made actually is that in all species of life there are pious and impious members of that species. Even though they don't make karma, they don't make new karma, from what has happened to them, they still get put in situations that are relatively worse and better. Like, one of these dogs that gets in a family that is taking care of them, like nowadays in America, just around the corner from the temple in Houston, there's like this, what do they call it? Do you remember seeing it? It's like a country club for dogs or something like that. Not seriously. It's like a country club where the people bring their dogs and they treat them like they're some kind of, lords or something. And then there's others on the street that are just, in India especially, you see them there. They're really suffering like wounded dogs. Prabhupada calls them street dogs. And if they have a master, then they live like kings. If they don't have a master, they live like street dogs. Therefore, we need a master, all of us. So yes, even, Rati, even trees and plants and birds and animals and whatever, they all have trees with flowers, they're considered to be pious. And fruits. And one that has lots of shade and deep shade that you can get underneath and get out of the sun. And some of them have, thin needles and there's no shade. There's no under pine cones. They'll hit you on the head. Of course, there may be some food value in pine cones and in the pine nuts, but some don't have any. They're impious, or they have thorns. They'll stick you and make poison. Yeah. I mean, the conditioned souls have become so ignorant that now they're letting their dogs lick them in the face. And then they're getting bacteria that are causing them to lose their limbs just from being licked by a dog. Hello?
Disgusting.
Yes, no more, please.
I just had one question on the
Churn
subject
it. Keep churning it.
of getting a master, a spiritual master, because in the purport of verse 551, verse 51, Srila Prabhupada is saying here that anyone who puts himself under the guidance of the spiritual master and acts accordingly is said to be acting in terms of Buddha Yoga. Because in our movement, it's quite often a devotee will take initiation from a guru and not have the opportunity to get direct instruction or association. So then does that mean he's not acting in terms of Buddha Yoga?
No. If he's acting in terms of Srila Prabhupada's instructions in his books and the spiritual practices that he's given us, because all of us, are those of us who are in his line and want to be in his line, then I think in this reading or something, maybe I heard it today. I heard so much today, I can't remember where I heard everything. But there was one point where Prabhupada said that don't think that just because Krishna was with Arjuna hearing it, and now Krishna's not there, that you cannot hear it from Krishna. Because you can hear it from the sound, And Prabhupada's translations are, without a shadow of a doubt, transcendental, not different than the Sanskrit. There's a class of philosophers who say you can't translate from the Sanskrit, and you must learn Sanskrit in order to actually get the full thing. But it's not true. And even if you aren't physically with your spiritual master, if you've heard, he's telling you what he's heard from Prabhupada. So if you hear from Prabhupada, you hear from one of his godbrothers, you hear from anyone actually, who's actually, repeating, sincerely, and especially as we heard, eagerly. If one is eager to hear and eager to speak, then you get it from those persons. Therefore, it's also, I don't know how common it is, but we hear about it quite a bit, that sometimes a person will take initiation from one person and another person later on in their lives will become the life and soul of the person. And sometimes it's after the spiritual master has left. Sometimes it's when the spiritual master is still there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur got initiated by Vipini Goswami, Vipini Bihari Goswami, and he took initiation, and he always gave him the highest level of respect. But Jagannath Das Babaji became his life and soul. And Jagannath Babaji came to hear from Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, so it was mutual. So we're a Shiksha line.
Yeah.
We're a Shiksha line. Not that we don't need to, everybody needs to have initiation, but the main thrust of the force of our, lives are coming from Shiksha.
Roddy has a speculation.
Roddy, we don't allow speculators in this room. Go ahead.
Could it be that Lord Chaitanya took birth there under the Nima tree, that is, because he came to deliver the sinful conditioned souls?
Could be. Sure. Or you could just say that the neem tree became auspicious by having Lord Chaitanya taken birth underneath it.
Definitely
Lord Chaitanya liked bitter neem preparations.
There wouldn't have been any flies around, that's for sure.
Yeah? Yeah?
They hang up the neem leaves to keep the flies away.
Yeah.
Which is like it's this antiseptic kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Prabhupada used to take the neem and brush his teeth with it. Neem twig. So I guess anything in contact with Lord Chaitanya becomes auspicious, doesn't it?
Roddy says that's nice. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Rati, thank you for your expanding our view.
Maharaj, if I may.
Yes, Mark, please.
I
The
think
teacher, Mark, is going to speak.
Head of the department.
Head of the department, no less.
I think it was text 37, maybe 38, Maharaj, where Prabhupada said, worship Virat Rupa if a person is too attached to body and mind. I wonder whether you'd be kind enough just to expand upon that, please.
The person who's too attached to the body and the mind can't perceive the personal form of the Lord and can't even conceive of the personal form of the Lord. Therefore, the Virat Rupa has appeared in order to give the persons who are too attached to the body and mind something to think about that will take them forward in their spiritual lives. And because in the Bhagavatam and other parts of the Vedas, the different parts of the universal form are likened to different parts of the, like the trees are the hairs in the body, and the clouds are like the hairs in the head, and the rivers and streams are like the veins in the body of the Lord. So when one meditates like that, he begins to associate personal features with the Lord, and it helps him to prepare himself to be able to conceive of the Lord as a person. Yes, Dhamora.
I find it very helpful, that kind of meditation, sometimes when I feel the mind getting too much or too much pressure. I go and walk in the park and do some rounds.
Yeah.
And try and see Krishna everywhere. It's actually very helpful.
Yes.
To bring you back to kind of some semblance of spiritual consciousness.
Yeah.
It's a nice, tool in the
Yeah.
kit of the practice.
Yeah. Toolkit. And when one becomes fully Krishna conscious, then one actually sees the form of the Lord. In other words, there are some parts of the Vedas that says that absolutely pure devotee sees the form of the Lord, not the tree, even though they're seeing the tree. Otherwise, they'd be bumping around into everything when they're walking around, or dancing with the trees or something. I guess that's the gopis did that. But they immediately think of Krishna when they see any form. It reminds them of Krishna, so then the form of the Lord comes into their mind in that way. Okay, gentlemen, we're going to close off the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We made a vow to do this every day for the rest of my life. So far, so good. We've made it through every day except for 2. Those were long-haul flights. And other than that, we've been since March. We started here, and we're still going by mercy of the Vaishnavas. And we will continue until this mortal coil curls up and goes away. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Bhakti Binda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Shri Maitreya Muni ki jai, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai.